Good afternoon. I'll call the meeting to order. Today is Tuesday, December 2nd, 2025. Time is 3 o'clock, and this is a regular meeting of Fargo Planning Commission. First item is to, let's scratch that, announcements. Everyone is invited to join Code Connect number 5, Tuesday, December 16th from 12 to 1 p.m. Code Connect is a live online information session about Fargo LDC 2026, which will feature updates, context, and question and answers about the project. To learn more about the project, join the informational session, visit www.fargoldc.org. Again, that's Tuesday, December 16th, 12 to 1 p.m. Now, no changes to order of agenda. I will entertain a motion.
So move.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Item B, minutes of the regular meeting of November 4th, 2025. Everyone had a chance to look at the minutes. Any changes or discussion? If not, I'll entertain a motion. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Item C, public hearing items. The first item is a hearing, item 1A, hearing on application requesting a zone change, Covey Ranch 3rd Edition, and 1B is hearing on an application requesting a plat of Covey Ranch 3rd Edition. Megan to present.
Good afternoon, Planning Chair and Planning Commissioners. Excuse me. Item 1A and 1B is entitled Covey Ranch 3rd Edition. This application is for a major subdivision and zone change. One thing I'll note is that staff is recommending continuation while we work with the applicants to further refine the details of the application. And so this application will have a recommendation for continuation, but it will be an introductory item for discussion and public hearing. And I'll also note that there is item D1 also on the agenda today, which is an annexation item, which has a similar boundary to the application that I'll present on right now. Thank you. So the application is for a major subdivision, which is platting a portion of the north half of Section 10, Township 138 North and Range 49 West, and a zone change application to rezone from agricultural to ag and SR4, single dwelling residential, MR3 multi-dwelling residential with a CO conditional overlay, LC limited commercial with a CO conditional overlay, and PI public and institutional. The subject property is bounded by 64th Avenue on the north, 45th on the west, and then a little bit further to the east is I-29. Up on the screen is NDSCS and Capstone Classical Academy, and then the Fargo Sports Complex, the Park District Sports Complex is right up here. Images of the site. This is looking from 64th Avenue to the west. This is a pretty big area. It's about 153 acres. So behind, if you were standing here, behind your shoulder would be the 64th Avenue Bridge, and then you can see the NDSCS and Capstone Classical Academy in the distance. And then this is looking from the other side from 45th Street to the east. Those two buildings I just mentioned on the left, 64th Avenue Bridge in the distance here. And then on 45th Street, I'll talk about this a little bit more later, but these are grade separated PED crossings and then a channel crossing for stormwater conveyance that would go underneath 45th Street. This is the zoning map. Again, you can see the schools here are PI, public and institutional. And a quick overview of the master planning. So this area has been talked about off and on for nearly 2 decades, has kind of come back and forth to the planning department. At that time, there was one kind of main owner talking about that vision over the years. Now we've got a couple of different owners. And so the last couple of years, we've been working on master planning, that developer vision that the developers brought forward and talking with them and refining some of those details. There are some constraints to this site. I-29 is a barrier. There's overall stormwater master planning that's happened, so there'll be a series of stormwater conveyance channels, and so kind of nailing down that stormwater conveyance channel has been an item, as well as crossing identification where that crossing or pedestrian crossing would be located. And so when we kind of put those owners right now, there's 3 property owners, as well as the city of Fargo that's looking to acquire some property for some stormwater management. And so putting that together and working with adjacent property owners, there's been kind of some intensive efforts in the master planning for this development. As I mentioned, it's about 153 acres, so it's a decent chunk. So some of the things that we've been working with the applicants on for that master planning is the roadway alignment, connectivity, and road type. So what is that road going to look like? How much right-of-way is needed? Driveway access management, utilities, stormwater management, including that channel location and crossing, as I was mentioning, that vision, the developer's vision, and then design standards through a conditional overlay, pedestrian connectivity, and parks and open space amenities. And so the applicants have all been working with the Park District as well on these applications as they are on park dedication as they continue to refine that vision. So up on your screen is the concept master plan that's been provided by the developers. So you'll see right where my cursor is, this southern line of where that stormwater conveyance is really the south boundary of what your applications are for what you're reviewing. This is just showing potentially what the master plan could look like in the future, but thinking about these things like connectivity and pedestrian movements, parks and open space, holistically within that development and how they will continue to develop in the future. And so the boundary that we're looking at here is north of this conveyance channel. The east side is kind of where Sports Drive would be here, along 64th Avenue, wrapping around the schools, and which are Covey Ranch first and second editions, up to 64th, and then bounded by 45th Street. So I'll talk about some of the things in the master plan and have some different diagrams. There's also 2 exhibits as laydown items. One of them is an updated master plan, which is this. The changes to that just include this layout that you see for Sports Drive. The packet included an old layout or previous layout, and then a zoning narrative is also a laydown item. So some of the things that we coordinate is placement of those roadways. You know, we know where 64th and 45th is. Those are the arterial roadways, but where would the collectors go? So 40th Street and 66th Avenue would be the collector roadways connecting within the development. And then the remainder would be local roadways. Pedestrian connectivity, so the arterials will have 2 10-foot paths on either side. 66th Avenue South will have a 10-foot path on the south, and 40th Street South would have a 10-foot path on the west, and the conveyance channel would have a 10-foot path on the north side. There'd be an at-grade crossing over 40th Street and a grade-separated crossing that I was mentioning under 45th Street. There would also be, at approximately the quarter mile, there would be a path that would connect from this park property and cross the drain. Again, because we can only have one crossing over the drain, this pedestrian crossing is important to have to keep that continuity. There will also be 2 connection points to the east into the development to ensure that connectivity. One right here and one here for 65th Avenue. And just a quick note on ownership, the city of Fargo will own these stormwater conveyance properties. The Fargo Park District will own this park property, and over about right where my cursor is, there'll be an additional park property that will allow the residences to get to the path connectivity within the neighborhood instead of having to go all the way around. This is a zoning exhibit identifying what is proposed for the zoning, and so in red you'll see what's proposed is LC, limited commercial. Brown is MR3, the multi-dwelling residential. Orange is SR4, single dwelling residential, and then the green is PI, public and institutional. So the laydown item, the zoning narrative, talks a little bit more about the development that's intended, including the LC, the limited commercial zoning district, as well as the MR3. Those properties, the MR3, are intended to be developed at a higher density, around 50 units per acre. As you all probably know, that's not allowed by right at this point in our land development code. And so at some point in the future, when those are ready to be developed, they may be back to talk about that higher density development. With the LC properties and the MR3 properties, there would be a conditional overlay with some design standards on it, those of which we're working with the applicants on the details of those currently. Up on your screen is the subdivision plat. So you can see the roadway layouts maybe a little bit more clearly here. There would be a roundabout at 40th Street and 65th Avenue South. And because Sports Drive is only dedicating half of that right-of-way at this time, there'll be a temporary turnaround on the east side of 65th Avenue that will allow that movement. And at the time that the remainder of Sports Drive, that right-of-way is acquired and constructed, that is when the Sports Drive would be constructed and that roundabout, or I'm sorry, that turnaround, temporary turnaround would go away. The plat shows access management, negative access easements. So this heavier line along the roadways will restrict access and movements into the properties. Your commission has seen on, for example, Selkirk development, kind of those short negative access easements, and in order to have some snow storage and parking, that will also happen on these SR4 zoned lots. That is something that we're currently working with the applicant on. And then for access management from the arterial roadways into the property at about 8th mile, access points here where my mouse is would be limited access at some point in the future as traffic patterns increase in the area, so that access would change over time. So at this point, staff is recommending continuation to the January 6, 2026 Planning Commission meeting while we work to refine some of the development details with the applicants. I know there are folks, owners and representatives of the owners here today, and they may wish to address your commission. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thanks, Megan. Commissioners, do we have any questions for Megan? Go ahead.
Megan, can you talk about how this application fits in with our recently adopted growth plan? And could you also maybe speak on the development of this application in relationship to the new LDC coming next year, if there's been any
Sure.
considerations with or anticipations for those changes?
Sure. Yep. Thank you, Commissioner, for that question. To answer your second question, we have talked about that, and we're maybe hopeful there could be some connection to it, but we are just not at a point that's been far enough along in the land development code rewrite to know exactly how that's going to lay out. And so, unfortunately, we're just kind of misaligned a little bit with timelines. To answer your first question, so this is located or identified as a place type of an urban neighborhood. And so it is consistent with that designation in the growth plan.
Megan, excuse me, and maybe I'm missing it, but do we show, or are they showing pedestrian connectivity over to the sports drive so that there would be pedestrian connectivity up to the sports facility? Seems like that would be a logical connection.
I know that has been something that is being discussed at this point. I know that the Park District is interested in that. Right now, what we do know is that there'll be a 10-foot shared use path that connects to 64th. And then over right about here, I believe it is, there is an underpass. So folks could get underneath 64th Avenue at that grade separated crossing below to go further north.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Megan? I'll invite the applicant up. Make sure you state your name for the record.
My name is Jace Hellman on behalf of Dabbert Custom Homes in 64th Avenue Development, the main owner of this with some parcels being sold out to other entities and developers, specifically the residential and some of the multifamily pieces on this. I don't have too much. Megan did a really good job of kind of going through the overall intent. We understand that this is kind of more of a early presentation of this as we work through some of the additional items working with staff. I've been with Dabbert for the last 3 months and have kind of jumped into this one towards the tail end, but my understanding this has been years in the making with different ownership groups working together to develop kind of this roadway network. Staff's been really helpful on getting this to this point. Overall, it's going to contribute to some of the off-street pathway connections, desires of the Park District. I know there was a comment about the Sports Drive connection, and I believe that's a conversation that's being had between the Park District and the Back 40, who's the owners of the east parcels on this that are not a part of this application, but those communications have been occurring on that. Overall, this development is kind of more of a mixed use in intent, single-family residential, multifamily, some limited commercial. We're providing at least a quadrant out parcel for what was Lot 1, Block 3, with a commercial on the west side of 40th, just to try to attribute to or give an idea of how those smaller commercial parcels could develop. Obviously, we would be back through any design reviews and stuff for that. Mainly just here, if you guys have any questions or immediate corrections that we can add to this application before we're back in front of you officially on January 6th.
Commissioners, any questions?
I have a question regarding, I think it's lots 5, 6, and 7, the residential lots. Those are all intended now for single-family homes. Is that correct?
Lots 5, 6, and 7.
If you go back to the drawing with the color, it's the orange portion there with the small lots.
Yes, and I refer to the owner with Brookstone Properties. I think the representative is here tonight, Andrew Thill, but I believe that those are meant to be single-family homes. Is that correct, Andrew? Yes. I'm getting the thumbs up.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you all.
Let's go ahead and open up public hearing. Anybody wish to speak on this item? Anybody wish to speak on item 1A, 1 Bravo? Seeing none, let's close public hearing. Commissioners, anybody want to make the motion?
I'll make the motion to continue to the January 6th Planning Commission meeting per staff's recommendation.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, let's take the roll.
Well, wait,
Oh.
before you, I have some comments, concerns, I guess, about the single-family lots, the small single-family lots, because these lots are 35 feet wide, and some are wider, but I'm concerned that here we have, as we've seen before, a large number of narrow lots along streets. And what that will mean then is that these streets will be total garage doorscapes, because every house presumably will have a 2-car garage. It'll face the street, and so there isn't very much room beyond that. And I'm thinking about the long-term value of such properties, because they may be inexpensive now to buy, but I don't see here a real neighborhood being developed. There are models for very narrow lot neighborhoods. I think the best model I can think of is the Chicago bungalow. Vast areas of Chicago are 25-foot lots, which are narrower than yours. Every house has a front porch, has a nice living room window, small yard in the front. Of course, the secret is that there are alleys in the Chicago bungalow neighborhoods, and all of the garages are on the alleys. And those neighborhoods, built as workforce housing 100 years ago, today are very much appreciated. They've appreciated in value, and I don't see the future of this neighborhood having that same potential because there really isn't a design quality proposed here for these streets. And it just seems to me that there is a better solution. That is, you can have 25-foot lots and a two-car garage on an alley at the back of the lot. But none of that is presented here. And I would like to suggest that this residential area be rethought to provide a true neighborhood that can have greater value in the future.
Any other comments or discussion? Okay, let's go ahead and take the roll.
Shuey,
Aye.
Cly,
Aye.
Betwag,
Aye.
Rosenberg,
Aye.
Schmidt,
Aye.
George,
Aye.
Goffrin,
Aye.
Mose,
Aye.
Tassett.
Aye, motion carries. Next item, 2 Alpha 2 Bravo. 2 Alpha is a hearing on an application requesting a conditional use permit. Urban Plains by Brandt 8th edition, and 2 Bravo, hearing on an application requesting conditional use permit on Urban Plains by Brandt 8th edition. Donald Crest to present.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Donald Kress of the Department of Planning and Development. Let me set you up with this one a little bit here. This is a little different than we usually do it. These 2 conditional use permits are actually on lots 1 and 2. The next 2 items, 2A, 2 and 3, are on lots 1 and 2 of Urban Plains by Brandt 8th edition, which is not yet recorded. You may recall at your November 4th meeting, you recommended approval of this plat here. This is Veterans Boulevard, 32nd Avenue, Cedar Drive here. And the 2 lots we'll be talking about in items 2 and 3 are those that are on this, this area here. This is lot 1, this is lot 2. So item 2A and 2B refer to lot 1. With these conditional use permits, if your commission would approve these, they will just sit and wait to be recorded until the plat is recorded. So they won't be able to do anything with it until the plat is recorded. That plat is currently in review with our engineering department and will probably be going forward to the city commission in the near future here. We don't have an exact date for that. But that's why both of them seem to have the same first name, Urban Plains by Brandt 8th edition, but items 2 and 3 are on different lots. So looking at the item that the Planning Commission Chair introduced there, Lot 1, Block 1, they're requested 2 conditional use permits here. Again, this is Lot 1, one for residential use in the commercial zone, limited commercial zone, and one for a parking reduction, a rate reduction here. So this is the site here. Again, you're looking westerly. Ace Allen Way is a private drive that is one of the several private drives within this subdivision on Cedar Parkway here. And then just looking here northerly across the subject property here. It's a little cloudy here the other day, Friday. The zoning here is LC Limited Commercial with a conditional overlay. The conditional overlay will remain. So there are design standards for the site and building design included in that. Preliminary site plan, this will be the same site plan for both items. Here for Lot 1 indicates that there will be 3 apartment buildings, approximately 68 units per building, 204 units total. There's a shared stormwater pond in the middle. There is parking here underneath the building and on the surface around the building. And there are also, since this is a private drive, the lot line extends to the middle of that roadway, and that roadway is configured to have a parking lane on one side, and so some of the required parking will be taken up in there. As stated in the staff report, there is the request for parking reduction is supported by the documentation there provided by MBN Engineering. Mr. Yuko there provided that for us. And the normal ratio for the LDC ratio for residential rental units would be 2.25 parking spaces per dwelling unit. The requested ratio is 1.75 spaces per dwelling unit. This has been reviewed by Jeremy Gordon, our transportation engineer for the city of Fargo, and found to be consistent with a lot of the parking reductions we've done for similar requests in the recent past here. So that's conditional use permit. The first conditional use permit there for a reduced rate for parking. The second conditional use permit also for these apartments this is an LC zone where residential use is not allowed by right, but is allowed by conditional use permit. The proposed density of that is 40 dwelling units per acre. The actual density is a little bit less than that, but we just always have a little extra there just in case. So that's a residential density there for 40 dwelling units per acre, again, consistent with some of the higher densities we've been approving recently through conditional use permits and planned unit developments. This is a rendering. This is also in your packet there, showing the apartments here and the office building. There's an invisible lot line right through the back there. For the alternative access, here are the conditions. Again, that ratio of 1.75 spaces. And then just our standard conditions there regarding conditional use permits, that future permits, they have not submitted a building permit yet, but that would be generally consistent with the site plan that you've seen there. And if it turns out that the proposed building permit is something different, staff would evaluate whether that would have to come back before your commission or if we would deal with it as staff. Again, if your commission would recommend approval, you're just approving the CUP, you're not approving that site plan. They have to still go through a whole process with our building department and the other reviewing departments. For the household living conditions there, again, just state the density, and one of our standard conditions there is condition 2. As always, we show this slide that is the approval and appeal requirements. So again, if this gets appealed, the appeals must be filed within 10 days. We make this part of the public record by showing the slide. The recommended motion is stated in your staff report and it's shown on the screen. The one on the screen is worded a little more neatly than the one in the staff report, but it's the same conditions, just laid out a little more neatly there. The applicant's representative, Brandon Rayboyne of Rayboyne Realty, is with us this afternoon and may wish to address the commission. That concludes staff's presentation. Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you, Donald. Commissioners, any questions for Donald? Go ahead.
Donald, is this the type of project, I guess, do we have a sense that this application for a CUP, would this be something that in the future LDC, this could potentially be something that they would be able to do by right, that wouldn't have to go through this process?
Commissioner, can I defer that to Mark Williams here to talk about, or Nicole?
I'm thinking so. We're, kind of along the lines of your previous question on the last case, Commissioner. I think some of that's still to be decided and discussed publicly as well as with the commission as a whole. But as you can see with this one and in the previous item, some of those questions related to the future LDC and if you go back to the rendering,
Yes, ma'am.
Donald, these are the kind of questions we've been asking at the any of these quote negotiated zonings, right? CUPs, COs, PUDs, any of those things that are negotiated. You can ask the applicants. We've been asking a lot more questions about how they lay out on the site, what's it going to look like, how is it, fitting with their CO, not maybe estimating how that conditional overlay is changing, but to show that they have thought through architecturally how it's going to work so we can kind of diffuse the speculation, if you will, as part of the application process. And so in this project, for instance, really, kind of trying to diminish the aspect of accessory buildings like garages, things like that, the relationship to the street, the relationship to the open space. Those are all questions we've been asking along the way through the application process.
Any other questions for Donald or staff? Okay, I'll invite the applicant up.
Hi, Brandon Rayboyne, here to talk through the project.
Do we have any questions? Okay, nothing to add?
I was here to answer some questions.
Okay.
It's a fun project where I don't want to pitch you on anything, just more of be a resource if you need have any questions.
Okay, well, you're off the hook.
You guys are too nice.
Let's go ahead and open public hearing. Anybody wish to speak on this item? Anybody wish to speak on 2 Alpha, 2 Bravo? Seeing none, close the public hearing. Commissioners? Do I have a motion?
I'll move approval as recommended.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, go ahead and take the roll.
Rosenberg,
Aye.
Betlock,
Aye.
Shui,
Aye.
Mose,
Aye.
Blythe,
Aye.
Schmidt,
Aye.
Dordry,
Aye.
Stoffren,
Aye.
Tassett.
Aye, motion carries. Moving to number 3, hearing on application requesting a conditional use permit to allow alternative access plan for parking reduction on proposed Lot 2, Block 1, Urban Plains by Brandt, 8th edition.
So, thank you, ma'am. So following up on our last item, we're looking now at Lot 2 of the proposed Urban Plains by Brandt 8th edition. This is just a request for a parking reduction for office, something we don't do a lot. Those pictures look familiar. They're the same pictures as last time there. And the zoning is again LC, limited commercial, with the conditional overlay, which will remain in place. The site plan here, again showing the office building, does have parking underneath, and there's some surface parking here as well. It's on the sort of the point of the curve. This project is interesting because it's entirely surrounded by right-of-way, but part of the right-of-way is public here. Cedar Drive is, of course, dedicated public street, and these surrounding roads are private drives that are actually the adjacent properties owned to the center of those. So they have, it's a little different, we deal with it a little bit differently than we would a public right-of-way. Normally when you have parking, you couldn't use parking on a public street to satisfy your parking, but here they're parking along the private drive, which is on their lot, so they can use some of those spaces for parking. Again, that same graphic here, the office building. So as I was in discussion with the applicant, you know, the passerby would not see the lot line here, so this seems like a coherent development, and I believe the applicant stated that the office building and the first apartment building will start construction about the same time, so they'll go together a little bit. Recommended conditions here, again looking at the chart in your staff report there, the required number of spaces for office based on the 30,720 square foot proposed size of the office building is 1 space per 300, requiring 103 spaces. The request is 1 space for 365 square feet, providing 85 spaces. And again, documentation provided by MBN Engineering in your packet there and reviewed by Jeremy Gordon, our traffic engineer, who found this to be a reasonable reduction. Again, our approval and appeal slide, noting that the appeal period is within 10 days of the date of decision, which is today, December 2nd. Read that into the record. And the recommended motion there, again, for the parking rate at 1 space per 365 square feet, and then our standard conditions for such CUPs added as items 2 and 3 there. Again, Mr. Rayboyne from Rayboyne Realty is here to address the commission if you have any questions. That concludes staff's presentation. Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you, Donald. Commissioners, any questions for Donald?
I've got one, Donald.
Yes,
I'm
ma'am.
not, I guess I'm not uncomfortable with the parking reduction, but just looking at the concept plan, the way it's currently laid out, I do have concerns.
Okay.
And so I would just, I know with trying to maximize every spot to be found, like that triangulated area at the bottom portion, the southern end.
Yep.
Like that just concerns me just from a general layout standpoint. So if they were to revise that to a bit more of a conventional layout, it just seems like then the parking would be reduced even further. So I'm assuming that the solution is truly to be able to get the parking counts as high as possible. But I guess I would, and I don't even know that we're necessarily voting on the layout, it's the CUP, but that's just something I would be concerned with moving forward.
Okay, perhaps the applicant can address that a little more for
Sure.
you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Well, and Donald, if I can, Commissioner, could you clarify a little bit about, maybe identify what's more concerning, so we...
Yeah, just in my role as an architect, I do a lot of concept site planning as well, and just having a large kind of area that there's no definition around, that's typically something we try to not do. So you've got this large area you're coming into, and imagine if there's cars coming from, from the west and from the east, there's going to be confusion because you have a large area where you're not sure how to use it. I mean, that's kind of the where my concern would be coming from.
So from the
A safety standpoint.
From the access
Yeah.
coming in to the site.
Yep, correct.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Donald or staff? Okay, thank you. Do we have any questions for the applicant? Do you have anything? You have something to add? Sure.
Since I got off easy on the last one, I might as well come up and talk.
Perfect.
So obviously you can see the site isn't a traditional box. And so I think we're definitely all ears as far as, how to make parking the most efficient to get the most parking spaces out of it. Our goal was to get as much parking as we can. There are a few limiting factors with the lot line being to the middle of the road on a private road, and they have a bunch of parallel parking in there. Even just squeezing that parking lot 5 feet one direction or the other is a 4 or 5 parking spot swing. So just little stuff like that become somewhat challenging. And so this was kind of the best layout we could have to maximize parking. We'd obviously, technically like more parking, but we feel like the parallel parking spots on the road add a really nice buffer for any overlap. And then, that triangular portion, again, is kind of like a little Rubik's Cube. You kind of do everything you can to make it work in there. And so that ended up being a little bit of blank space, but I think that's also some open space for turnaround and flow of traffic. And I really don't think we'll have a ton of traffic on the south portion of that to the east, just that one little lane that'll run into any parking. So I totally get your concerns. I don't know that there's a better way that we've seen to do it, but love to hear your expertise if you have something to.
No, and I appreciate your explanation. I think anytime the solution is different than what is expected, there can be an issue. So it's just a matter of how do we help ensure that public safety is at the forefront, right? So it might just be additional striping. There's a lot of different ways that it could be resolved or looked at closer. And I know this is early, but it was just something that popped up.
Yeah, and honestly, I think we took some of that into account with our accesses. So phase 1 of our project is the office and apartment 1 in the upper left. You'll see the underground parking access is right there. And then phase 2 is on the right-hand side. So there's really no underground parking access. So that's really kind of overflow parking. And then there'll be like tenants can walk in there, but there won't be cars flying out of the underground parking. So
Thank you.
that's my story.
Any other questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Go ahead and open up public hearing. Anybody wish to speak on item 3? Anybody wish to speak on item 3? Seeing none, let's close the hearing. Commissioners?
I'll make a motion to accept the findings of the staff and staff recommendation.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Go ahead and take the roll.
Fly,
Aye.
Schmidt,
Aye.
Stoffren,
Aye.
Mose,
Aye.
Jordry,
Aye.
Rosenberg,
Aye.
Vetlock,
Aye.
Shuey,
Aye.
Tassett.
Aye, motion carries.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thanks, Donald. Moving to 4 Alpha, 4 Bravo. 4 Alpha, hearing on an application requesting conditional use permit to allow household living in GC, General Commercial Zoning District on Lot 5, Block 1, Veterans Square Edition. 4 Bravo, hearing on application requesting conditional use permit to allow alternative access for parking reduction on Lot 1, Block 1, Veterans Square. Chelsea to present.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Chelsea Leverson with the Planning Department. Agenda item 4A is a request for a conditional use permit to allow household living in the GC General Commercial Zoning District. And item 4B is a request for a conditional use permit for an alternative access plan for a parking reduction. The property is located at 5600 38th Avenue South, right here. It is just northeast of some commercial development on the corner of 40th Avenue South and Veterans Boulevard. Cheyenne High School in West Fargo is located right here to the west. Here are a couple photos of the property. For your reference, the map at the bottom left of your screen will show the photo location and the direction it was taken. The top photo is facing north from the southeast corner of the property, and the bottom photo is facing east from the northwest corner of the property. The top photo is a Google Earth image taken from the intersection of 38th Avenue and 56th Street South, and the bottom photo was taken facing northeast from the southwest corner of the property. The property is zoned GC, General Commercial, with a conditional overlay. The conditional overlay provides higher design standards, separates vehicle and pedestrian traffic, prohibits some uses, and restricts the maximum building height to 110 feet. There's also an existing conditional use permit for residential land use, which will terminate if the proposed household living conditional use permit is approved today. The applicant has provided a preliminary site plan of the proposed development. They are proposing to construct a 5-story, 69-unit, multi-dwelling residential building. The first floor will provide ground-level parking and bicycle storage, and floors 2 through 5 will offer 1, 2, and 3-bedroom residential apartment units. The applicant is requesting to provide 124 parking spaces, which is approximately 1.8 spaces per unit. The Land Development Code requires 2.25, so they are requesting a reduction of 32 spaces, which equates to approximately 20.5%. The laydown item you received is a parking narrative provided by the applicant that references the parking generation manual from the Institute of Traffic Engineers, as well as the MetroCog traffic study. The proposed parking ratio falls within those recommendations. Here are some renderings provided by the applicant of how the building may look. This bottom photo is on the corner of 38th and 56th. This list of conditions is a bit longer than the previous case that Donald presented due to the building's orientation and its proximity to single-dwelling residential homes. Staff worked with the applicant to create these conditions in order to add pedestrian scale design elements and ensure that the structure will fit contextually within the neighborhood. And the applicant did provide an additional rendering showing how this development may look incorporating some of those pedestrian scale conditions. I will note that the approval of the conditional use permits does not approve the proposed site plan or renderings shown today. On your screen is information about the appeal process should these items be approved today. We have not received any inquiries regarding this project. The applicant, Ian Bullis of Eagle Ridge, is here today and may want to address the commission. Staff's recommendation is for approval with the following conditions as shown on your screen and stated in your staff report. Thank you, commissioners. That concludes staff's presentation.
Thanks, Chelsea. Commissioners, do we have any questions for Chelsea?
I'm just somewhat confused. It seems to me that this is really, in effect, a rezoning change because residential is not allowed in commercial. But why is it not a zoning change request?
Sure. I can go back and give you a little bit more history on the property. So I believe it was in 2014, the property was zoned LC, which is similar to the surrounding properties on the block. And then, so let me see, find my notes here. In 2014, it was zoned LC, limited commercial. Limited commercial does have a maximum building height of 35 feet. So in 2016, development plans did change. And at the time, the owner was proposing a 7-story condominium building. So it was rezoned to general commercial with a conditional overlay. That conditional overlay is the same one that was proposed, or that is existing on the property now, limiting the height to 110 feet. And then later on, the conditional use permit for residential land use was added. So currently today, a residential building could be built on the property with the existing conditional use permit. The applicant is requesting a new conditional use permit that increases the density.
So that'd be consistent with the Epic apartment buildings about a block further north, correct? It has the same zoning?
I'm not sure which one.
Yeah, it would be. To summarize this really quickly, again, we're rewriting our land development code, and when we have MR3 zoning that only allows 24 units per acre, and we keep hearing we want more and more density, and we have developers proposing 40 units per acre, it's getting to be really challenging to be able to provide that opportunity to build the buildings that we would like to see based on our historical conditional overlays that we've approved. So that's why you see the GC in this proposal this way. Hopefully, the new land development code will have a zoning by right that allows such a building to be built with administrative approval.
Any other questions for staff? Do we have questions for the applicant?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Ian Bullis here with Eagle Ridge. Just here to answer any questions you might have.
I just have a question for you. So your development, I think it's Maven West, just north of here, and then your other two developments on 52nd and 32nd. The way that you guys have kind of developed those where you have underground parking and then first floor apartments really, helps activate the street, gets eyes on the streets. I was wondering why that wasn't implemented with this project.
Sure. So in a perfect world, you would keep doing that. It's kind of been our model. It works great. Unfortunately, there are just some site conditions on this property underground. I think it's a sand vein. I'm not entirely certain, but it did not, the soil conditions didn't allow us to do underground parking on this one. So we were kind of forced to bring it at grade and then go up from there with the residential.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I have one question. I don't know if you'll be able to answer, but.
Sure.
So we have a lot of parking reductions, and we don't ever hear how the parking reductions are working with these apartment buildings. I'm assuming that the parking reductions on these apartment buildings, what you're seeing on other similar properties, there's no issues with the parking reductions.
Right, and so we certainly don't want to underpark our own buildings. We are proposing something that is more in line with the Institute of Traffic Engineers guidelines, we'll call them, for multifamily construction, which I think aligns also a little bit more with the MetroCog goals for similar type properties as this. So that's kind of what we based our ask on.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Go ahead and open up public hearing. Anybody wish to speak on item 4 Alpha 4 Bravo? Anybody wish to speak? Seeing none, let's close public hearing. Commissioners, what are your wishes?
I'll move to approve per staff's recommendation.
We have a motion. Do I have a
Second.
second? Motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Go ahead and take the roll.
Schmidt,
Aye.
Petlock,
Aye.
Jordry,
Aye.
Sofferin. Aye. Mose,
Aye.
Rosenberg,
Aye.
Bly,
Aye.
Shuey,
Aye.
Casa.
Aye, motion carries. Number 5, thanks, Chelsea. Number 5, hearing on an application requesting a plat of Valley View Estates 4th Edition. Donald Crest, take us home.
Thank you, ma'am. There's actually one more after me.
There is one more.
Okay.
You're right.
But anyway, I appreciate the
Getting
sentiment.
really excited here.
Okay. Commissioners, thank you. Again, Valley View Estates, 4th edition. I'll preface this by saying that you'll see that the recommendation here is for denial. Staff did meet with the applicant prior to going forward with today's hearing and did advise them of that denial. We've been in contact with them. They got the staff report last week, so they're familiar with everything that's in it and our reasons for denial. This property is located here, 36th Avenue South, and between 36th Avenue South and Big Goose Lane. This was developed as part of the Valley View Estates 2nd edition. And this is our last property on our last item is right down here, so these are pretty close to each other. And these were developed as you see here in the close-up photo, as attached housing, but they are on individual lots. And these were developed at the time under the alternative development standards, and this is described in your staff report, to create, individual sellable units, individual single-family units, even though they're attached. And there are actually 6 buildings here, 4 4s and 2 3s there. And the site looks like this. You've been on 36, you've probably been by these, Valley View Townhomes. Their access is all from the alley behind here. And they are all individually served with utilities. So each unit has its own water and sewer connection, either from 36th Avenue, Big Goose Lane, or the alley, which is a dedicated public alley on the plat of Valley View 2nd edition. And here are just some views all the way around here, looking down the alley. The zoning here is SR5, single dwelling residential. This is the current configuration of the plat. So this is an excerpt from Valley View Estates 2nd edition, as you see the individual lots. The proposed configuration here keeps the outline of the block, but eliminates the individual lot lines. The dashed lines would indicate those lines are no longer there. And here's the full plat for that. As stated in your staff report, staff's recommendation for denial is based on the idea that when this was developed with the alternative development standards and the LDC, there are specific purposes and benefits defined in the LDC for that. It's one of the rare items in the LDC where there are actually specific features of using that are defined. And as reading that here, Section 200506A1 states that it is the purpose of these development options to allow variety in development standards while maintaining the overall character of a single dwelling neighborhood. And Section 200506A1D states that a public benefit of using these development standards is they promote opportunities for affordable housing. There's affordable, purchasable, ownable single-family residences. And we've done this a few different locations in the city at various times. These development standards have been around as long as the LDC has. And they're set up to work a specific way. And the applicant here would proposes to take those lot lines out and basically just create one, in this case, 2 big lots, 3 buildings on each lot, and they would no longer be on individual lots. They would not be single dwelling residences in the sense they would not be on individual lots. And staff feels that this would contradict the original purpose of these. So it's not just a simple plat that created them. There's more to it than that. And so staff believes that by allowing those lot lines to disappear, you're changing the nature of the development. You're not just taking the lot lines out, you're changing the nature of the development and the original intent of the development. And that is the basis of our recommendation for denial, which is stated in your staff report. And Reed Middow, representing the applicant, is with us this afternoon and may wish to address the commission, as well as Brian Pattengale, the project engineer. That concludes staff's presentation, commissioners. Thank you. The recommended motion is stated in your staff report and shown on the screen. And that concludes our presentation. Thank you.
Thanks, Donald. Commissioners, do we have any questions for Donald?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
So this application would essentially turn these units into condominiums?
No.
Because they're on one lot?
No, they would have to go through, that's a separate, just for the commission's background, creation of a condominium is a separate process that's actually done through the county recorder's office. So basically, they just become rental properties. The applicant has stated that all these units are rented. They are for sale units, but they're all rented, which that may be the case, but the planning department does not consider them rental units as like a multifamily building would be. If these were created, just to go back, and there are many factors, commissioners, that figure into this. But as we mentioned, I mentioned in the beginning, these are all served with individual water and sewer connections. If these were just, 3 buildings and each one had its own, just one water meter and one sewer connection, that would be a different type of building. That would be a multi-dwelling building. So there are a lot of factors that figure into this. But yes, sir, so, there's building code, there's fire code, there's utility connection, there's platting, there's several factors that figure into this. But just taking the lot lines out would not create them a condo. They would have to go through a separate process with the county. Your commission and the planning department are not involved in that process.
Any other questions for Donald? Nope. Okay, I'll invite the applicant up.
Afternoon, Commissioners. Brian Pattengill with Houston Engineering. Reed Middaugh with Edgewood REIT. We own the special purpose entity that owns these properties. So we bought these units in July of 2025. They were all rented at that time. We paid $270,000 per unit. They're all assessed above that at the current moment. There's 22 units. My understanding is that only 16 of the 22 units would get a reassessed value by doing this. So that'd be 4 of 6 buildings. The 2 buildings with 3 units in them would not be reassessed. And we just want them to be taxed and assessed in accordance with the way that we bought the property and the way that it's currently operated, and will be for the foreseeable future. So,
Questions for the, go ahead.
So with regard to these properties, they have never been offered for sale, ever, by any of the, since they were built?
I can't say that
As
definitively,
as
but
individual residences?
I apologize for cutting you off. As far as I know, they were not ever offered for sale. They could have been for sale, but the original developer rented them up, and then we purchased them from the original developer in July, totally occupied, all rented, so.
And you, when you bought them, you had no intention of ever selling them as individual
Correct.
ownership?
We do not intend to do that, and that's why we're going
Even
through this
though
process.
that was the original intent of and you bought them with the understanding that that's what was designed?
We did know that they were on individual lots when we bought them, yes.
Okay.
So what's the purpose of this? Why are we doing this?
The purpose is to pay less in property taxes. I'm not going to beat around the bush on that one. That is the purpose. We have shareholders, and we have a fiduciary duty to our shareholders to operate the properties, the most efficiently that we can.
So why can't this be done without tearing this apart?
I'm not sure I quite understand your question.
Why do we need to rezone this? Why can't we find another solution to get the taxes down to the right way that it's being used versus tearing it apart? My concern is you're not here forever. These are really important components of our future growth and our strategy of building density and having houses, and these are already done. So pulling this off, you can't put it back on later. So if we're going to do this, it's a problem, and if it's to save money, I think we need to try to find a different solution, whether it's the century code issues or other issues, to try to address your concerns of money, of saving money versus doing this at this format. That's what I'm trying to understand. What remedies have we tried?
So my understanding is that by changing this to 2 parcels versus 22 parcels, the sale comparable comp set that the city assessor's office will use will be multifamily versus single family. Currently, they're assessed with a single-family comp set, and they're not operated as a single-family property. It's a multifamily property. So we just want the proper comp set to be used in the assessment process, that's all.
Any other questions for the applicant? We also have Michael, the assessor here, if we have questions for the assessor. Any other questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any other questions for staff?
was wondering if we could ask the assessor a few questions.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming today.
You're welcome. For the record, Michael Splonskowski, City Assessor.
So just to, back to the developer's concern, when these are reassessed, how much value is put on what the per unit price was for the previous transaction and during the summer?
Well, I don't know that I could say, per unit what this is. He said that they bought it for $270,000 per unit, and that's probably pretty close to what we have it as. But basically, the bigger question becomes is, how are we going to look at it from a valuation model standpoint? How are these things selling in the market today? And I can say very surely that as a single-family dwelling, these are going to sell more per unit than they are as, say, an apartment building as a fourplex or as a threeplex. Generally, the apartments that are commercial, they're definitely selling for less than that per unit. And then if we take the other ones and change them to a threeplex, that is definitely lower as well. And that's how we would have to look at them if this goes forward. So you're looking at a pretty significant reduction in value when it comes to changing the classification and how we look at them from a valuation model. I didn't run the strict numbers to tell exactly what that change would be, but I can tell you it'd be a significant change.
And when running your models, do you take into consideration what the current use is? Like in
Yes.
this case, as
Yes, absolutely.
essentially multifamily.
Yep. So one of the aspects that we have to look at it from an appraisal standpoint is highest and best use. So we would say, okay, what is it currently being used as? And one of those is what is the legal use as determined by this body? What can it be used for? And if it's not being used in a legal way, then we would necessarily, we would have to consider, from a market aspect, how does that affect it one way or the other? So, right now, there are all single-family dwellings, and we have to consider that as part of our appraisal process. Once it changes to basically, in effect, an apartment building, a fourplex or a threeplex, then we have to look at that and apply the valuation model for those.
So with the previous sale where it's, the seller decided to sell it all as one instead of individually, wouldn't it have been more beneficial for them if the highest and best use was as single-family dwellings to sell it individually? And since they did sell it as a package, doesn't that kind of show the highest and best use as more of a multifamily project?
You could make that argument, but the other thing you could say is that because they sold it all as one package, there's some assemblage. And what that means is that being they assembled it all and sold it all as, several units altogether, they either sold it for less than it could have, or maybe more, depending on what the motivation of the buyer is. And we just have no way of tracking that at this point because they never sold any of the single units to say, okay, what is that difference?
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Okay, so is there a way going forward, since we're going to want to do more of this, housing and rental property, is there a way that we can win this process the best way of saying, if it's rental property, it's going to be assessed as rental property, and if it becomes a sellable product? Because I can envision this happening where somebody's going to build these units, rent them out for a while, and then try to sell them over time. And if the financial mechanisms don't work for saving property taxes and saving income, they're just going to build them without the lots. And they're not going to be able to be individual houses. They're going to have to go to condominiums. And the problem with condominiums in this world right now is they're hard to get financed because national lenders will not finance condominiums. So is there a way that we can set up a process that allows it to be done like this right here that says they're rental units, and we assess them as rental units, but when they start to sell, that it gets converted? Is there a way to do that?
A part of your question I'm not going to be able to answer because it's not in my wheelhouse. But what I can tell you is that we have, over the last 5 or so years, we've had it where we had these buildings that had condos in them, and they were all owned by one company, and they decided to get rid of the condo decks and change it back into an apartment building. Does it happen real often? No, but it has happened. And is there a good way to predict when that's going to happen or to try and avoid it? That's the part that I can't answer.
But is there a way to start out this process that way so we know? So if it was presented, if this was a brand-new project and it was presented, and it was going to be rentals, but the builder decided to put individual lots in and individual hookups so that down the road, 5 years, 10 years from now, it could be sold. Is there a way within the system to look at that and to value it as rental property because that's what it is for today?
If it's being used as a rental property, then we would value it as a rental property. And if they went, down the road, they went ahead and condoed it and started selling off the individual lots, then we would, or the condos, then we would start valuing it as condos. And typically you are seeing the condos do sell for more than, on an individual basis than the apartment buildings. But I know that I'm still not answering your question, and I think the answer is I don't know the answer to your question. That's a planning question, I think.
Well, but I guess my point is if I brought this project brand new in, and it was going to be a for rental project today, if they weren't going to sell them, they were never going to list them, but they brought it in exactly like this, how can we look at this and say it's rental property, it should be assessed as rental property? Is there any way to do that? Because it's got individual lots, individual infrastructure, but it's not for sale. The individual buildings are not for sale. The whole thing is rental property.
I would say that what you're presenting is kind of contradiction in terms, in that it's an individual property, but it's a rental property. And there's kind of from an appraisal standpoint, we would not be able to do that because we have to define it as one or the other. You know what I'm saying? It's like I can't say this is a rental property and it's an individual property at the same time. I've got to appraise it as what it is. So I'm going to have to define either it's a rental property and it has to be valued on a rental or an apartment scale, or it's an individual property and it has to be valued as that.
Okay.
Any other, go ahead.
So a question, if this went through, you would appraise it as rental property and the appraisal values would go down as would the taxes.
Yes.
Would that also reduce the market value for this property? I mean, we're...
Likely, yes.
And so I'm really kind of, if somebody's trying to protect the interests of the purchasers, the owners, just by reducing property taxes, reducing their expenses, doesn't it, it seems kind of foolish to reduce the overall market value of the same property if you're worried about the investors.
Yeah, I guess to a certain extent, I would say that from, again, that highest and best use theory, it seems to me from an appraisal standpoint that this is the highest and best use as it currently is being used. And to change it would, from a feasibility standpoint, to change it back would reduce the value and therefore reduce the highest and best use.
And you said that the purchase price of this block was very similar in terms of the valuation that you've placed on it?
I think that was the statement that he made, that it was currently valued at $270 per unit, and that's what they bought it for. So,
I have a question. If you were to change this, how does that impact the adjacent property owners all around it?
I do not know the answer to that question. I would have to look and see what they're currently being, what their current use is, what their value is. If they are similar types of properties, then you could see that it would be somewhat of a ripple effect. But if they are, right now they're not the same type of property, they're not being valued the same, then it may not affect them at all.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yep.
I think this might be a Donald planning question.
Do we have any other questions for Michael before? No? Thank you. We very much appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
I really like this project, this townhome style, and I think it fits this neighborhood really well, provides a good option.
You mean as
And
it exists right now?
As it exists right now, and I guess just the concept too of just the fourplexes and the threeplexes, I think it fits really nicely. In this proposal with the 2-block configuration, let's just say this project didn't exist and they came at it in this approach, would they be able to recreate what's there right now, doing this same, what they're proposing with the 2 blocks? Like, could they make this SR4 with this many units?
It's SR5.
Or SR5?
Yeah. I'm not sure I follow that, sir. You mean if they just had let's try this. So looking at this here, so if this was just a blank space,
Yeah.
could they come in and plat it like this? Is that what you're asking me?
Platted, but also just build what's currently there. Would they be able to do?
We still have those development standards available, so and we get requests for them occasionally still to use those. I'm trying to think of when the last one was. It's been the last couple of years we've done this. So it seems that they could, build it like this again. Yeah, it's not locked in time somehow. Is that?
Yeah.
Mark has some additional information.
I think the challenge here is, as some of you may remember, this was a pretty contentious area when these requests were coming in to redevelop this area. And the request from the developer at that time was to make this individual single-family dwellings. And so that's how the approval process, that's how we worked with the neighborhood on that level. Now, if the developer would have, at that time, came to us and said, okay, I want this 2 blocks, I want, 3 fourplexes and 2 threeplexes, we would have worked with the neighborhood differently. One of the challenges that I see here is this really is the first for me with the platting process, as far as platting a piece of property to reduce the value, to lower the tax value. And one thing that I'm also thinking is, okay, if our single-family market crashes and our multifamily market goes up in price, now the goal would be having individual lots to have it assessed as a single-family dwelling versus a multifamily dwelling to be able to take advantage of the tax purposes and using the tool of platting as that tool to achieve that goal.
That was going to be my question. So could they, if we change this and they want to go sell it, can they then propose going back to single dwell? No, okay.
No, I think just to add to Mark and everybody's commentary here, we agree this is one of the first times we've seen something like this, and we also appreciate the applicant bringing the concern, straight to you as a point of conversation. And yeah, once those lot lines go away, we never get them back, and the ability to get them back becomes quite difficult. Also, I think to answer one of the commissioner's questions, if this were to come in as an original greenfield development and say the 2 blocks like they're seeking, we would have maybe seen that as an application, but the zoning would have been different. And you wouldn't have seen the individual taps per unit and the cost of the public infrastructure that went in to support the single-family development. And so the infrastructure expectations and costs that's still being special today is at that SR, with the individual taps and things like that. So it's more costly to put the infrastructure in to serve what exists today than it would be to serve the multifamily, if it was a multifamily. So for us to align the zoning with the platting is what one of our primary concerns is. By just doing the platting, and it wouldn't meet MR standards, and so you would have gotten a different product altogether. And so this is a really interesting test for our growth plan implementation and for our future zoning discussions and LBC discussions. And I think we are going to probably see more of this as we see what happens in the investment arena with development and housing.
Any other questions for Donald or staff? No? Okay. Comments?
I move to deny.
You have a motion?
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any comments, discussion?
I guess the one thing that is, listening to the discussion is, there's a certain role for the planning commission, and the planning commission's role is not to make adjustments simply to make a developer happy on their property taxes. And that's the one thing that just seems like that's not what we should be looking at when we're making these decisions.
Madam Chairman, just for clarification, did you open the public hearing?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
Do you want me to open a public hearing?
Yeah, it's a public hearing item.
Yep.
Okay.
Hold on.
I'll hold.
Okay.
I'll hold my motion.
Let's go ahead, open up public hearing. Anybody wish to speak on this item? Anybody wish to speak? Seeing none. Okay, close public hearing.
Thank you, ma'am.
Are we still good with?
Motion reintroduced.
Okay, we have a motion.
I think I seconded it. so
Okay, we have a
again.
second. Perfect. Back to where we were. Any other comments? Discussion?
Well, from my point of view, I don't see a compelling reason to make this change that is being requested. If there were a compelling reason, then I could entertain it, but it seems to me that the current configuration of the lots leaves flexibility. They can certainly be rented forever and ever, if that is the wish of whoever owns it, but they can also be sold. And to remove that flexibility, I think, would be a bad decision.
Any other comments? Seeing none, go ahead and take the roll.
George,
Aye.
Mose,
Aye.
Glide,
Aye.
Schmidt,
Aye.
Etlock,
Aye.
Shui,
Aye.
Stoffren,
Aye.
Rosenberg,
Aye.
Tassett.
Aye. Motion carries to deny the proposed plat.
And ma'am, just for your and the applicant's clarification, this will still go forward to the city commission with a recommendation of denial. Thank you, ma'am.
Thanks, Donald. Thank you, staff. Thank you, Michael. Yep, D1. That's why I didn't open up hearing. I figured it out now. Okay. Other items, annexation of approximately 122.95 acres, portion of the north half of Section 10, Township 138 North, Range 49 West of the 5th Principal Meridian, Cass County, North Dakota. Megan.
Thank you, Chair and Planning Commissioners. So this is as far as geography, about the same area as the Covey Ranch 3rd Edition, items 1A and B earlier on your agenda today, except for some portions of right-of-way and this property in the northeast corner that have been previously annexed. Again, we're at 64th Avenue South on the north side here, I-29 over here, Fargo Sports Complex to the northeast, and 45th Street over here on the west. This is approximately 123 acres. There's about a 30-acre difference from those properties that I just mentioned that have been previously annexed. It's an owner-initiated annexation, which is by ordinance pursuant to the North Dakota Century Code. There's 3 owners that have applied for this, Dabbert Custom Homes, Enclave Covey, and Brookstone property. And the city, as I mentioned previously, is also working to acquire a portion of property for stormwater infrastructure. The Planning Commission evaluates, sorry, I jumped a little bit further little too quick ahead, but these are the same images that you saw earlier for that same location. So this is the annexation plat. The Planning Commission evaluates this for consistency with the growth plan, and a hearing will be scheduled concurrently at the City Commission with the Covey Ranch Third Edition. So similarly to item 1A and B, we continue to work with the applicants as part of this development, and staff is recommending continuation to the January 6th, 2026 Planning Commission meeting. And just a reminder, this is not a public hearing item. So with that, that concludes staff's presentation. Be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thanks, Megan. Any questions for Megan?
Megan, what, is it because it's an owner occupied or owner initiated? Is that why we're just doing this, we're not squaring it off? I mean, down below, what's the reason for down below that with a funky little line there?
So what this, thank you, Commissioner, this line follows that south portion of the stormwater conveyance, so that it's in alignment, and as part of that annexation, and something that we look at as part of technical review to make sure that that line between the dedication plat and the annexation plat are the same.
So is that dedicated already? Is that drain already dedicated for, or has it been purchased? I mean, who owns, it's not on here yet?
So it is within this portion. It will be within this portion of the annexation, the stormwater conveyance. And so that's something that the engineering department is working closely with those applicants on, and making sure that all of that property is located within it. So all of the stormwater conveyance channel will be located within Covey Ranch Third Edition and within this annexation plat.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Megan? Okay. Do we have any questions for the applicants? Applicants want to add anything? No questions? Kate? Don't need to open up hearing, so commissioners,
I'll move to continue to the January 6th Planning Commission meeting for
Second.
staff's recommendation.
we have a motion. Did I hear a second?
Second.
Second? Any discussion? Seeing none, go ahead and take the roll.
Rosenberg,
Aye.
Bose,
Aye.
Betloff,
Aye.
Shui,
Aye.
Bly,
Aye.
Stoffren, Jordry,
Aye.
Schmidt,
Aye.
Hassett.
Aye, motion carries. Again, just a reminder of December 16th, 12 to 1, join Code Connect, the fifth one at www.fargoldc.org. Thank you very much, and hope you all have a Merry Christmas. Meeting adjourned.